So let's take a look at terms of what makes us at risk. Things that give us an increased risk of having vitamin D deficiency. The time of year. You know, in winter, the sun goes south, or north if you're in the southern hemisphere, whichever one. And so for the winter months, whichever side you are, unless you're lucky enough to live on the equator where it doesn't matter, the UV rays that you need from the sun to hit your skin to convert cholesterol into vitamin D for you, they just can't, the UV rays can't get through for the winter months. So, and Dr. Hollick holds that if you take a map of the United States and you draw a line across at the level of Atlanta, anything above that, we haven't had UV rays for quite a while now. You know, it's winter, and we're not going to have UV rays at all. None of them are getting through at this level. Below the Atlantic line, you start getting a little bit. By the time you get down to the equator, you can still get them. And it's the UV rays that actually do the conversion for us. So time of year makes a great deal of difference. And of course, time of year has a great deal of difference in terms of how much clothing we have on and how much skin we have exposed. And one thing that I had never considered, but those precious Muslim women that have to wear the burqas complete with a veil, they are bound to be all deficient. They are not allowed to get the sunshine. I just never even thought of that. Okay? The other thing that is unfortunate but true, as we age, our body gets weaker. And our ability to convert cholesterol into vitamin D with the UV rays goes down. By the time we are 70 years old, the research suggests we have lost 75% of our capacity to make our own vitamin D ourselves. So by the time you're 60, probably everybody needs to get on a supplement, get a doctor to, but just by age and the fact that we're getting old and our skin is getting weaker as well as everything else is getting weaker for us. If your skin, if you are a fair-skinned, light, blonde, blue-eyed, Scandinavian descent, and you sunburn easily, you will make your vitamin D very quickly. The darker your skin gets, the less effective it will be. By the time that you have people who may be African American with very dark skin, Michael Hollick says they may need 6 times as much sunshine as the rest of us. And that's interesting because they came from Africa where they had sunshine. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. People who are ill tend to stay indoors and get less sunshine, and it becomes a risk factor. There are certain drugs that will create a vitamin D deficiency. Some that you may recognize are Dilantin and phenobarbital. The corticosteroids will all promote deficiency. And people who are on the anti-tuberculosis drug rifampin will find that they're going to need supplementation just because the drugs are robbing the body of the D. There are things that do that. If you have renal or hepatic disease, if your kidneys or liver is not working right, you're going to have vitamin D problems. And that's because as the sun hits your skin and makes that first conversion of the cholesterol, that molecule then goes to the liver for the second conversion. Then it goes to the kidneys for the third conversion. Then it goes out to the cells and the cells use it. So it's not like it was a simple process. And that which we ingest by oral intake has to go through conversion processes as well. It's not ready to go on a cellular level either. And we're just about there. We will skip the chemical pathway. Of course, the osteoporosis connection is pretty clear. Dr. Grievous holds that anybody who has a diagnosis of fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome or osteopenia or osteoporosis or fragility of bones, all of those need vitamin D pulled just routinely. You just need to be quite insistent that it get done, because you can be better than that. It's interesting what we're learning about vitamin D and cancer. I got interested in that connection first when one of the first ones I heard the connection on was colon cancer. That people who had a deficiency in D had an increased risk of colon cancer. Well, that was important to me because my mom had colon cancer, and I'm her kid, you know, so I'm watching for these genetic things. And then I started hearing that breast cancer was also increased. Well, my grandmother had breast cancer. But that with the deficiency you have an increase, and as time goes on, it seems that all of the cancers are an increased risk if you have a deficiency. We have correlated it to diabetes, to the cardiovascular diseases, to high blood pressure, to obesity. We're correlating vitamin D deficiency to virtually everything bad and making everything bad get worse. Generally speaking, I haven't, you know, the literature is just getting bigger and bigger on it.
Now, also obese people cannot absorb the vitamin D because of the fats. Is that?
Well, the research that I saw suggested that the body tucked the vitamin D that they did get into the fats where they couldn't get it back out again. That's the way I interpreted what I read. You know. They found that children who didn't have a nice lot of sunshine in their early years have an increased risk of multiple sclerosis. Yeah. So that there are things that if we don't do when we're kids, it may catch us later on. There is a link to psoriasis. Just virtually everything.
Now, psoriasis, isn't that an autoimmune disease or not?
So is cancer.
It is?
Cancer is an autoimmune disorder, deficiency.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, it kind of links in that. Now, just real fast, let me touch base as the difference between vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 is the vegan form. That is plant form. And the name of it is ergosterol.
What was this? I'm sorry.
The vitamin D2. Whereas the vitamin D3 is cholecalciferol. I'm sorry, it's not ergosterol. That's the form just before it becomes ergocalciferol, but comes from ergosterol. And then the cholecalciferol is your 3D3, which is animal-based and is from converted cholesterol. And the way you can remember it is cholesterol and the cholecalciferol of the D3. Okay? So you've got the two that you can kind of keep in mind. People who are vegetarian or vegan may prefer to use the vegetarian-vegan form. The ones who don't care can get the very cheap stuff in Walmarts that is made from animals, and that's fine. Either one, according to the studies that go back, I found the studies actually in the 60s, either one will work. And when I was doing the looking through the literature, it appeared that there were about 8 different kinds of vitamin D, and some of them are extremely toxic. Those are not over the counter. And I remember actually injecting the calcidiol. And I was required to stay by the bedside of the patient for 30 minutes in case that they went into anaphylactic shock.
Did you have 8 kinds of B3, you say?
There are 8 kinds of vitamin D.
Oh, D, I mean.
Yeah. But the D2 and the D3 are over the counter, and you can get them without a prescription. Yeah. The others would require prescriptions and are much more dangerous. But remember, this is a hormone. You know, this is a hormone.
Yeah.
Okay? In terms of dosages, the old standard for vitamin D was 400 units a day. I believe that the government is still holding to that standard, while the rest of the researching scientific community is changing. Michael Hollick, who is one of the leading researchers in the field, recommends 1,000 units of vitamin D every day for everyone at every age. That's pretty astonishing. Linus Pauling Institute, and they are certainly reputable people, they're recommending 2,000 units per day. And John Connell on the Vitamin D Council is recommending 5,000 units a day. But he also recommends that if you're going to do that, in 2 months, get tested and see where you are. Because by the time you're up to 5,000 of the D3 in particular, that's a loading dose. We're bringing it up, and you wouldn't want to stay there. And like you said, you have some over there that are at 10,000. Well, that's going to be a loading dose. And if that is a D3, or is it a D2, or do you remember? That's okay.
It could be a D3, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think it might be D3 from lanolin.
Okay. When your doctor tells you to take vitamin D, he is usually referring to D3. Unless it's Dr. Grievous, who makes it very clear that he's talking about D2. And the reason that that's important is that you can get exactly the same benefits out of them, but you have to use the right dosages. And on the vegan form, you have to use 3 times as much as you do for the animal sourced one. Okay, questions?
So it's good to be a vegan, is it?
Dr. Grievous definitely feels that it's good to be a vegan.
Yeah. I'm vegan.
Yeah. And of course, you know, the original source of vitamin D was cod liver oil, which is why our grandmothers, you know, used to use it for absolutely everything. Yeah. But they didn't know what they were doing, but that's what they were doing. They were plugging in with vitamin D. Now, I don't know how many of you noticed the news last March when 8 supplement companies in the United States were sued because their fish oil products had high levels of PCBs. Those are cancer-causing and birth defect-causing toxins. And I don't know if you noticed, I think it was in December, on the local news stations, they were putting out another warning about fish, and don't eat fish in the cans, that was so full of mercury that it was not safe, and don't have it more than like once a week type thing. After I finished the lecture this morning, I picked up my mail, and one of the companies that was being sued, I picked up the thing that they were saying, well, they were discontinuing providing their vitamin A from fish liver oil anymore. They're just discontinuing it, which suggests to me that maybe there were PCBs there. It might not be. They might have just thought it was not worth the bad press. I don't know. But they're stopping actually producing that.